All right, man, peace. So as we all know, over the last couple of weeks, one of the major storylines in the liberal sports media has been the rise of the liberal black athlete. So, of course, one of the main galvanizing points of the liberal black athlete has been the events in Charlottesville, Virginia. One of those athletes that has been especially galvanized by those events and by the presidency of Donald Trump has been Kevin Durant, the superstar forward for the Golden State Warriors. He states that he will not go to the White House in commemoration of the Golden State Warriors 2016 championship because he does not want to be around Donald Trump. He states that he does not respect him. Of course, they're going to talk about it. I'm going to chime in.
Kevin Durant says he won't go to the White House if the Warriors are invited and is not in support of our president, and he's making no bones about it, telling ESPN in an exclusive interview, quote, "I don't respect who's in office right now. I feel ever since he got into office or since he ran for presidency, our country has been so divided, and it's not a coincidence."
So I guess what he's basically trying to say is that the country was not divided before Donald Trump. I stated before, Donald Trump is a lightning rod. Okay? People do not like for certain aspects or certain elements of society to be on Front Street. It's like a family that has a lot going on behind closed doors, but they're more concerned about people finding out about it than actually solving the issues. It shows you that the vast majority of people in this society, they think at a very low level. They're more concerned with how things are perceived than how things actually are. And they start to confuse perception with reality. Sometimes perception is reality. But Kevin Durant is one of these guys who is confusing the two. And it's because he's a low-level thinker. But let's see what else they have to say.
It comes from the top. Leadership trickles down to the rest of us. So, if we have someone in office that doesn't care about all people, then we won't go anywhere as a country.
And let me say this. When he talks about someone who doesn't care about all people, just like Michael Bennett, he's not just talking about so-called blacks. He's another liberal black man who's more concerned with homosexuals and these other liberal groups than he is his own, or as much as his own. Believe me, that's what he means when he's talking about he doesn't care about all people. All right, a lot of these liberal black men, and you brothers are going to find this out in these last days or as this society starts to spiral downward. You're going to see that they use a lot of these liberal blacks because they're bugged out of their fucking minds, man. All right, you're grown-ass so-called black men, and you're more concerned about homosexuals and how they're treated and how they're so-called perceived than you are yourself. Because as I've stated, what the liberal movements have done is they've convinced the so-called black men, many so-called black men, not all, obviously, but they've convinced many so-called black men that their cause is directly tied in and associated with the causes of feminism and homosexuality. And a lot of them are falling for it.
In my opinion, until we get him out of here, we won't see any progress.
You notice since Trump has been in the White House, they don't talk about the employment rate. They don't talk about things that are actually relevant in how you evaluate a president. They're more talking about people's feelings.
Well, Kane here with us. How we doing?
Doing all right.
We haven't gotten your thoughts on this subject, so I want to start with you. What do you make of what you just heard from Kevin Durant?
Well, I think Kevin Durant, first of all, I think he has the right. That should be beyond question. No one should be required to attend a celebration at the White House. No one should be required to attend many celebrations. It's not in the course of his employment that he's required to go to the White House, fellas. And I felt the same way when Matt Burke didn't want to go to the White House when President Obama was in office, and I feel the same way about Kevin Durant. This is his political opinion. You are allowed to have political opinions. You should not be required to honor someone else with your presence. I wish it were not political, and we've had this debate several times. I wish there were still places in our society. I wish there were still topics that were free from politics, things that could still be here for us to rally around our commonalities and not.
Well, that's not going to happen, Will Kane, because race is a major moneymaker. Everybody gets paid when they pander to the lower aspects of racial conversations, right? Not just the mass media. You have a lot of so-called black nationalist groups, if you want to call them that, the NAACP, a lot of these other so-called race-based organizations that make a lot of money off of these conversations and off of these topics, especially when they can intersperse or intermix the sports world with racial conversation. Very, very lucrative, both for the media and for a lot of these race-based organizations.
And not always infused with our differences. I think by design, the visit to the White House by championship teams is a celebratory moment that is not inherently political in any way. I think I would accept an invitation to the White House regardless of who's in office and whether or not I agree with them or not. I think that that is increasingly difficult to do. I will agree with Kevin Durant on this. I'm not that old, older than a lot of people, I guess. This is the most divided in my lifetime that I can remember us. It feels...
This is not the most divided at all. All this is more liberal media over-exaggeration and hyperbole. And I'm surprised that even Will Cain has fallen for it. But I guess, after a while, when people hear something enough times, they start to believe it. I mean, this is nowhere near as quote-unquote divisive as the Rodney King events, as many of the events that I remember as a little kid in the 80s, as even O.J. Simpson, when he was found innocent. I mean, give me a break.
Feels like we are pulling apart at the seams.
Well, the only way that you could pull apart is if you were together at one time. America has never been together at all. It pretty much is just a federation of city-states, right, known as states, a grouping together of various demographics of people based on race and religion who basically come here because they know here's where you can make money and you could do whatever you feel like doing. All right. America basically is the Las Vegas of the planet Earth. People could just come here and just do whatever they want. All right. This has never been a place where people have been unified. People basically just gather together in order to protect their right to be freaks. That's basically all America is really about. And that's really all it's ever been about. It was founded basically on witches that were kicked out of England and various other places. Right. A lot of merchants came over here to settle the land so that they could send the money back to the kings, whether it be of England, of Spain, or France. All right. The Americas, and particularly the so-called United States, has never been what it's been touted as in the mainstream media.
It's the privilege of every generation to say that. Usually we're wrong. The 1960s were more divisive. The 1860s were clearly more divisive. But it does feel like we are having a hard time finding commonalities. And
He keeps talking about divisiveness. Those eras were not divisive. They were revelatory. See, people don't like when the truth comes out. Whenever the truth comes out, that's going to bring quote unquote division. Okay? When somebody speaks the truth, it's going to cause division. One person is going to say they agree. The other person is going to say that they don't agree. And they're going to say, how come you don't agree with me? That's what they're going to say to each other. It's going to lead to a confrontation, a debate, maybe an altercation. That's what the truth has always done. The truth has never unified. It's always brought division. All right. And that's even in the scriptures.
And I wish that we could. And I wish that sports could be that. I wish that a White House celebration of your athletic achievement could be free from politics. I don't think Kevin Durant's analysis is spot on. I don't think his analysis of Donald Trump is spot on. And Max, we've talked about this. People don't hear this. It's funny how they don't hear the things you say, but it's a fact. This wasn't somebody I supported to be the office holder of the highest office in the land. But I don't think Kevin Durant's analysis is exactly right of who Donald Trump is. That also doesn't mean I endorse everything Donald Trump is doing. So yes, Kevin Durant has a right. Yes, it's increasingly seeming to be the decision more and more people are making because it's hard to have things in our society that are free from politics. I don't think he's spot on in his analysis, though.
Well, in the 1850s and the 1860s, were there good guys and bad guys? Were there good guys on one side and bad guys on the other?
There were bad guys on every side.
Well, there's good guys and bad guys at every moment in life.
Right, and there were good guys and bad guys then, weren't there?
Of course.
And the people fighting for slavery were the bad guys, correct?
See, now that's the normal liberal debate tactic of trying to drape his argument in faux or fake morality. The Civil War, as I've already stated numerous times, was not fought over slavery. If Will Kane actually knew real history, he could have refuted and nullified this man's argument or attempt at an argument, because Max Kellerman's ancestors were more likely to have owned slaves than Will Kane's. But that's neither here nor there.
The white supremacists then were the bad guys, would you say?
Your brush you're pulling
I
out.
can't believe.
You're just pulling a
I
brush.
can't
Hold
believe
on. You're asking me questions. I promise not to give you long answers.
You brought up the 1850s. You brought up the 1850s and the 1860s. So there were good. There was a clear moral choice then.
No, the choice was never moral. The choice has always been monetary. The Civil War was not fought over slavery. The Civil War was fought because the international bankers wanted to cause a secession so that they could bring in a national bank into America. And they wanted to bring in a central bank into each city-state. They wanted the so-called Confederacy to each have its own bank. Each state in the Confederacy, they wanted to have its own bank because Abraham Lincoln was against the bringing in of a national bank. That, by the way, is also why he was killed. So it's why he was assassinated. All right. That's all it was about. And a lot of these so-called slave freedom fighters were agents of the international bankers. Right. People like Salmon Chase, who went on to become, I believe, a Supreme Court justice and the namesake of the Chase Manhattan Bank. All right. So a lot of this history that they tell you is narrative. And Will Kane is going to become very flustered because of the liberal arguing tactics of Max Kellerman, who himself does not know real history.
And when white supremacists march and the president says anything positive about them or makes any kind of moral equivalency between the people who are protesting them, there's a clear moral choice once again.
No, because as has already been stated, there's bad or different. There's different grades of bad on every side. All right. The so-called white nationalists, they have their issues and their aspects, but they also have the points that they feel like they're fighting for. And you have the side of the so-called liberals who are contesting them, who really want to promote female superiority and pansexuality. That's really what they were trying to promote, the side of the liberals. And really, they were just agents of chaos. Their job was to go there and instigate. Their job was to go there and start conflict with the so-called white nationalists because they already knew how it would be framed on television. All right. I saw just as many so-called protesters or anti-white nationalist protesters grabbing their flags, grabbing their shields, whatever props the so-called white nationalists were bringing with them. They were trying to instigate conflict. Right? Whoever's the first one to put their hands on somebody else is the one who's instigating the conflict. It has nothing to do with what your moral stance is. That's why in America, supposedly, you have the right to protest. Protest and free speech is not based on what you agree with. It's based on the premise of protecting that person's right to do so. All right? That's all it's about. And yes, I agree with Trump when he said what he said about there being so-called bad on both sides. Both sides involved were idiots. And any black man who was affiliated or associated with that anti-white nationalist protest, who got his ass whooped, he deserved it. Like I saw that idiot who got 8 staples or whatever he got in his head. Who gives a damn? That's what he get for being involved with that. Oh well.
So when you bring up on principle, and I understand why, it's actually a praiseworthy principle. The idea that we're in America and free to make choices and we're not compelled to be a part of a celebration that we don't want to be. And then you bring up someone boycotting essentially the Obama White House visit. What you're doing by making it about the principle of freedom to choose is making is whether you realize it or not, making an equivalency between Trump and Obama, of which there is none.
I mean, you really have to analyze this man's attempt at an argument. And Will Kane, he really needs to step his game up. Max Kellerman is trying to make an equivalency between the white nationalists who are protesting with actual so-called slave owners. All right. There's no equivalency there other than maybe their outlook or their view on people of other races or of indigenous or people of so-called dark skin. There's no equivalency there other than that. And this is the same man, Max Kellerman, who went out of his way to say that Max Schmeling was a good man, even though he was affiliated with the Nazis. Isn't that something? But now, to suit his argument, he's stating that there's good and bad, and there's no argument. Will Cain is off Will Cain is off point. He's off his game. There's so many ways to attack this moron.
This is not political. This is about right and wrong. And it's instructive that you brought up the 1850s and 1860s. Because here, Kevin Durant is not saying Republican, Democrat, liberal, or progressive, conservative. He's not saying that. He's not saying this is about tribalism. He's not saying that. He's saying this is right and wrong. And Americans from all walks of life, people of goodwill, are saying, wait a minute. They're standing up and saying, there's right and there's wrong, and this is wrong, and we won't be associated with it. So this is unlike in my lifetime or your lifetime or Stephen A. Smith, your lifetime. This is unlike a visit to any other White House. It's
nonsense. And let me say this also, and I already alluded to this. Most of the abolitionists during the 1850s, they were paid agents. They were paid agents of chaos. All right, people like Harriet Beecher Stowe and these other people who wrote these manifestos or these books to try to attack the South for why they quote unquote held slaves. Oh yeah, the North was fighting against slavery. What the North basically had is they had a lot of conscription soldiers who were fighting for the right for U.S. citizenship. That's why they had a lot of Irish soldiers in the amongst the Union soldiers. All right, they were fighting for the right to become U.S. citizens. That's really all it was about. Abraham Lincoln could not afford to allow the South to secede from the Union. They would have lost an almost insurmountable amount of money that would have been contributed to the overall U.S. economy if they would have allowed the South to secede. Right, a Southern secession would have been a death knell for the so-called Union. That's all it was really about. Abraham Lincoln wanted to have all the so-called blacks in America deported to Panama. All right.
It's not about the principle. This issue that we're discussing is not only about the principle of the American right to choose. It's about the principle. It's about the idea, the ideal of American goodness, which exists incidentally. That's what this is about.
All that is based on opinion. Everything that he said is subjective. There's nothing valid about his argument whatsoever. He's speaking in vagaries and vain moralities in order to give himself a higher moral ground in an argument because he has a personal vendetta against Donald Trump. He's an almost sick in his head Zionist who has decided that he's going to attack Donald Trump because it makes him feel better inside. Most liberals are really mentally ill. There was a brother who was asking me about white guilt. I'll probably address that in another video. But basically, all white guilt is the subconscious admission by Caucasians that they feel like they don't really have the aptitude to run the world at large. A lot of them are looking at the world at large and they're seeing what's happening to it, how the environment is getting affected, and how there's mass murders and when I say mass murders, I'm talking about genocides, things of that nature. And they're saying to themselves, wow, what really are we doing? All right. That's why, if you notice, subconsciously, they're starting to associate black male leadership with something that is trustworthy as opposed to white male leadership. Like I said, they don't trust Donald Trump because Donald Trump represents the old guard of white male leadership. Now they're trying to glorify Obama. Why is that? Because the rulership of the so-called black male in the mind of the white liberal represents a more desirable alternative to what they associate with conservative white male leadership, which is genocide. And I'm just saying that's the perception. Those of us who are in the know understand that all these guys are controlled by the international bankers. And Barack Obama was engaging in just as much genocide and bombings as Donald Trump. All right. So it's far more complex than this buffoon Max Kellerman is trying to portray. But Will Cain is allowing himself to become very frustrated due to his own lack of understanding of real history.
I'm trying, before you go, Stephen A., just to pinpoint, Max, where you managed to find disagreement with what I said. And the way that you managed to find disagreement, if I'm analyzing it correctly, is you pulled a brush out of your pocket so broad that you just suggested I said now, or you're actually making the comparison that now is equivalent to the 1860s. And again, if I'm following, and it's possible, hold on, if I'm following, it's possible I didn't follow it correctly. What you just said is it's not about freedom of choice. In fact, that anybody that makes a decision to go to the White House, they are morally in the wrong.
Of course, because he's a neo-fascist, right? That's what liberals are. They're neo-fascists. If you disagree with me, not only are you wrong, but you're mentally ill. That is the mentality of the neoliberal fascist, right? Or the neo-fascist liberal, whatever you want to call it. That is how they operate. Okay?
They are morally obligated. And Max, this is going to be a consistent problem for you and me, is that your brush you pull out of your pocket every time you talk about this is that you indict good people in this country on a regular basis by suggesting that the choices they make in their life are morally unacceptable. And I'm telling you this, Max, I'm telling you here right now.
Well,
people
okay,
can be
good.
wrong,
I'm glad
Max.
you brought that up.
It's as simple as
I'm
this.
glad you brought that up.
People can be wrong, Max. It's as simple as that.
Right. I'm glad you brought that up about choices that makes it good. There are good and bad moral choices. You said it's increasingly
Max, this has to
difficult
be the
for
last
you.
word.
Okay, it's increasingly difficult for you as it relates to your opinion about visiting the Trump White House. You said that earlier. In other words, there is a line that one can cross. There are various figures throughout history. I don't need to name them.
No, you should name them, because I'm sure that you'll probably be naming them outside of proper historical context.
Because you would agree, I'm sure, yes, that crosses the line. And what I am saying, I suppose, is this line has been crossed in this case. And what I suppose you're saying is, no, it hasn't, not yet, though it's getting closer.
Let's understand once again, brothers, the reason why the liberal media is so upset with Donald Trump is because of what he represents, not against so-called blacks. Like I said, they use you so-called black men as a shield, as a Trojan horse, to enter the city so that they can push their real agendas, which is always feminism and pansexuality. Period. They're really mad that he banned the transsexuals. They're mad that he talked about grabbing a woman by the pussy. They're mad that he talked about keeping out so-called illegal immigrants. Why is that? Because that's going to cost a lot of corporations in America billions of dollars of borderline free labor. All right. These are things that they're mad about. Everything is always about the bottom line, and the bottom line is money.
Okay, we got to hold all the responses. This is a riveting conversation. I'm staring at Stephen A's face right now. He looks ready to go.
He looks like a jackass. Stephen A looks like your average dumbass liberal Negro who thinks he's going to drop some type of perspective on something and ain't going to know what the fuck he's talking about.
Please do not go anywhere. This conversation is just getting started. More First Take after the break. Earlier, we were discussing Kevin Durant's harsh comments towards our president, and he also said that he would decline an invitation if the Warriors are invited, of course, after winning the championship there. We haven't heard from Stephen A yet. I saw his facial expressions chomping at the bit, and I want you to get in on this subject in response to Will. Stephen A.
You know, I'm going to preface my comments by saying this. You know, a lot of people sit up there and they listen to us, and me and Max go at it, and Will comes on the show. And, you know, Will is obviously a lawyer by profession. He's from the South. He has different views than myself on many, many occasions. But I know him, got love for him, love having him on the show. And anything that I'm about to say about you, Will, is specifically as it pertains to what you just said. Nothing else.
All right, please make sure to get it right. That's all I ask.
I don't know what the hell came out of your mouth. I mean, I literally was listening to you and wondering what on earth you were talking about. Because I can't understand how you could have any disagreement with what Kevin Durant said, A.
You see, now he prefaced it as usual, like I stated, with another neo-fascist liberal or neoliberal fascist, whatever terminology you prefer. He had to preface his statement with that same type of sentiment. How dare you disagree? How could you not see this? Right? And this is why Will Cain started his statement by saying, I wish that we could just separate certain topics from sports. Because what they're starting to do on many of these sports debate shows, they're trying to inject a lot of political and race talk because they know that those conversations have no real resolution, because most people don't even know what race is, and they don't know what they don't really understand how the world is really being run. So it allows them to have talking points on these various topics for as long as they want. And it allows them to try to sound like they're informed, and they're not. Stephen A. is not informed. Max Kellerman is not informed. Max Kellerman does not know real history. He's your average Caucasian Jew liberal who's trying to play violins and trying to appeal to so-called blacks and that victimization mentality. And that's all it's about. It's very simple. If Max Kellerman truly feels that guilty about what occurred to so-called blacks, and I've stated this before, Max Kellerman, empty your bank account. Empty your bank account and give all the money that you have to the first black man that you see. And then you can go on with your life living guilt-free. No problem. If you're not going to do that, stop playing the violin.
But being more importantly, how you could believe that that's a political issue. You have athletes that refuse to show up to the White House when when the Obama administration was in office. It was clearly about politics.
Yes, because as we all know, there's no reason to dislike Obama. That's why people are getting more and more frustrated with the liberal viewpoints, with so-called liberal people who align themselves with the liberal branch of thought, because they clearly have mental problems. Stephen A. is suffering from a mental psychosis, the same one that he learned from Max Kellerman. Like I stated, the liberal blacks, they follow the liberal whites. They just do. And yes, if you do not want to go see Donald Trump, then that's totally fine. But it is a political choice. It's not moral. Donald Trump has not done anything morally divergent from any other president before him. He has greenlit the killing of people just like every other president before him has done. All right. He made a decision to move forward with building a wall along the southern border of America, something that has been talked about for the last 30 years. Ronald Reagan talked about it. Both Bushes talked about it. Bill Clinton talked about it. Obama addressed it. He just happens to be the one who decided that he's going to do it. That's why I've stated the real problem with Trump seems to be that no matter how outlandish or reasonable many of his points are perceived to be or are projected to be, he seems to be a guy who actually is trying to do what he said that he's going to do. And that is offending a lot of people because they're used to just being spoken to by a president and then having him do something completely different behind closed doors. That's what I think people don't like the most about Trump, is his brashness and the unapologetic nature in which he states what he believes. He's not scared about stepping on people's toes. He's not really worried about people's feelings. All right. Never once do I ever make any statements about his policies and whether I agree with them or disagree with them. To me, that's not really relevant. What I normally address are mindsets, viewpoints, and just psychological leanings. That's what I'm more concerned with, because that to me is going to determine more what a person does than what they say. All right. And just going back to the white guilt issue for a moment, I went to see the movie Detroit. I don't know if I mentioned this already. I saw the movie Detroit. A brother asked me to talk about it if I had saw it. I saw it. I thought it was a terrible movie. It was a very blatant white liberal shill piece trying to play the violence and make people feel sorry for so-called blacks. In regards to those Detroit riots, there are reasons for our people to be galvanized by certain events, but some idiot in a hotel room firing off a cap gun at cops while your city's under martial law, while everybody else there in the hotel is trying to sleep with a bunch of white prostitutes. No, I don't feel sorry for you. Okay? It was a group of silly ass niggas caught up in a bad situation with a bunch of racist ass cracker cops. All right? And confusion ensued. So I know it didn't make me feel one way or the other. I know all they did was they showed a bunch of black men lined up against a wall for about 50 minutes, crying and bleeding and begging for their life, making black men look weak and emasculated once again, and trying to act as if as if you're supposed to feel sorry for them. No, it was a bunch of dumbasses that got caught up in a bad situation for being dumb. All right, that's what the movie Detroit was about. I thought it was whack. I give it half a star out of 4. All right.
It was not about the way the man conducted himself. It was not how he alienated a populace of people. It was not how about divisive he was as a human being. You might have had a problem with his politics. You might have had a problem with his policies. You obviously didn't agree with. I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about those people who felt that way about Barack Obama, our former president, 44th president. You might have had a disagreement in that regard, and because it obviously affects your life, because policies that are implemented clearly affects the lives of hundreds of millions of Americans, you might have had an adverse reaction towards him based on that. But clearly it wasn't about the individual on a personal level, devoid of politics.
So that makes it even less relevant. So your argument is that Kevin Durant's stance is more valid because he just doesn't like Donald Trump personally. And that's supposed to be more valid than somebody choosing not to go to the White House for political reasons. Give me a fucking break, man.
It wasn't about that with Barack Obama. In the case of Donald Trump, it's clearly about that. And it's clear that's exactly what Kevin Durant is saying, alluding to what he cares about, alluding to what he agrees with, saying this just a couple of days in the aftermath of what transpired in Charlottesville, Virginia, which...
Yeah, when two groups of degenerates, white nationalists and white liberals, and the dumb niggas that followed them went to, had a little scuffle. And some lonely Caucasian woman who can't get a man got plowed over by a car, allegedly. All right? That's all that happened. So, I mean, give me a break. And really, it's pulling on the heartstrings of you niggas because one of your liberal white goddesses died. That's really what it's about.
Which you, me, and everybody else with sense found to be very reprehensible, along with a whole bunch of other things that we don't even need to say over FCC airwaves.
No, I didn't find it reprehensible. I thought it was two groups of fools going to war with each other. They could have wiped each other out. I wouldn't have gave two shits.
It was repugnant to the highest degree. So we know that you felt that way. We know Max feels that way. We know I feel that way. But Max is absolutely right when he points about how it's not about Republican and Democrat. It's not about conservative or liberal. He's saying, I'm talking about as it pertains to Kevin Durant's words. That's all I'm going on. That's all I'm going about, Will. Look at the quote. What did this man say that had anything to do with politics? If there was ever a day when...
How could any of his statements not have to do with politics? Kevin Durant doesn't know Donald Trump personally. So if he's going by his own personal like or dislike of a man that he doesn't know, that really is more of an evaluation of his lack of understanding on what real manhood is. How the hell could you just say you don't like somebody, you don't know them? You can say, I don't like what they did or what they're doing. But then once again, if you say that, then that's addressing their politics. So Stephen A. does not seem to really understand the argument. Or maybe he does and he just has as much of a feminine mind as Kevin Durant does. I mean, I'm already on record in regards to Kevin Durant. You can see he's dominated by his mother.
When you were on First Take, where your head is completely in the clouds and you didn't hear what the hell somebody was saying, it clearly is today, because that is not what Kevin Durant is alluding to. He's not alluding to politics. He's not alluding to the administration. He's alluding to one individual who has gone about the business of giving 2 cents, if that, about divisiveness, about the impact that it has on America, the slogan, Make America Great Again, hearkening back to a different time, and then literally conducting himself in a fashion that seems to be supporting that, even in the aftermath of the former leader of the KKK.
Look, and I'm not here to dispute Donald Trump's racial leanings. I really could care less. I'm not one of these pro-black dudes who cares about whether a Caucasian man likes me or not. But when Donald Trump says make America great again, he's talking about economically. That's what he's talking about. He's talking about the time period of or at least in his mind, the 1950s, back when, everybody lived like a Leave It to Beaver, when only the man had to work and the woman was home and you had 3 kids and a dog and you had a front yard and a picket fence. That's what he's talking about. All right. He's not talking about necessarily from a racial perspective of hanging black people from trees. But, he could be. Either way, I really could care less. Like I stated before, what a Caucasian person thinks is the least of my concerns. All right. As I've stated numerous times, most of these so-called pro-blacks, it's really that's a coping mechanism to hide how much they want the approval of the Caucasian. That's what they live for. That's why they're on the internet all day talking tough, but they won't go down to their local police station or to the White House and start the race war that they keep talking about.
Coming out and applauding him for it, he doubled down and got even more indignant. Kevin Durant is not a stupid individual.
That's debatable. That's debatable.
LeBron James is not a stupid individual.
That's also debatable. All right, it's possible for people to be adroit in certain areas and not be so adroit in other areas. No, they could be socially stupid.
A lot of these athletes are not stupid individuals. They're smart enough to see what it is and to be able to call a spade, particularly when it comes to LeBron James. So you harkening back, you saying that this is there's no place in politics or whatever. Kevin Durant
not
was talking
whatever.
about the
Tell me what I said specifically, because
well, you were saying that it
Yeah,
happened. You
listen.
said it wasn't politics. You said this is politics, and you don't like it when that happens. I'm saying this wasn't about
All right.
politics.
No, it absolutely is about politics, so that's a lie. Only thing that Kevin Durant can judge Trump or any other politician on is what they've done and what they've said. And what they said is normally consistent with what they plan to do. Unless you've met a man and you know him in and out, you can't judge. You can't say I don't like him or I don't respect him. Somebody could come back and say they don't respect you for leaving Oklahoma City. I mean, when we use certain terms, we have to know and understand the proper context in which to use those terms. But Trump is a lightning rod, especially amongst the liberal groups, and Kevin Durant is a liberal. Why? Because to be a liberal, you normally have to be very simple-minded and think at a very low and emotional level. There are ways to break down Trump and to criticize Trump accurately, without being a two-dimensional thinker. I have no respect for that.
My turn.
Sure.
Because here's what I'm tired of. I like both of you. We all do this with goodwill, I think, in general. These people at home that listen, this is what I'm tired of. I'm tired of you not listening to me.
You sound like a bitch.
I'm tired of you hearing what you want to hear.
You have to make people listen to you. You make people listen to you by making strong points, by using faultless logic, and by framing things in proper context. Will Kane, you failed to do so in this debate, and that's why they slaughtered you. They didn't slaughter you because they made stronger points or because they even had a point. It's because the false points that they put forth, you were unable to refute.
I'm tired of you lumping it into... Listen, I'm tired of you hearing good guys and bad guys, my side and the bad side. I'm tired of you saying anything that disagrees with you is beyond the realm of politics.
I agree with all that. Everything that he said, I agree with. They presented a series of false arguments and straw man arguments because they really, these liberals are so hurt by the Trump election that they're having a very hard time coping with it. So what they've done is they've created their own world within their own mind where they're in pre-Nazi Germany and they're trying to warn people. That's the scenario that they've created in their own mind. But it's very, very easy to topple that delusion if you have real facts.
I'm tired of being moral. I'm tired of you saying it's moral versus
None of those
immoral.
things occur.
And Kevin Durant is on one side, and all the immoral are on the other. And in the process of you cloaking yourself in this clear morality that anyone that has even the slightest bit of nuance of disagreement with you is somehow evil.
Stephen A. looked like he want to laugh. Like, I got this white boy cracking up right now. I got him about to have a nervous breakdown.
In the process of you doing this preening, this peacocking on TV, you don't hear a single thing that somebody says to you. First of all, when I say Kevin Durant has the right, and I compare it to Matt Burke doing it to Obama, Max, get out of here with I'm making moral equivalencies. You're so addicted to the language of the last week that you made a BS comparison there. I didn't say they were the same. Did I once say those are the same?
Why did you bring it up as an example, Will?
Because I show consistency, Max. That's the difference. I'm not convenient. I show consistency.
Oh, so you're the only one that shows consistency?
Yeah, you're right, Max. You know what I did out here?
You see how the black liberal and the Caucasian liberal are double teaming the Caucasian conservative or Caucasian moderate conservative, whatever the hell titles these guys make up. I mean, you got to create all these titles just to characterize all these nut jobs, the neo-fascist liberal and the moderate conservative degenerate and whatever. I need to help Will Kane with some of his arguments, man. It was so easy to attack Max Kellerman's arguments.
Is that what you're implying?
Yeah, you're right, Max. You know what I did out here? I wanted to come out here and draw a correlation, an equivalency between Barack Obama and Donald Trump. That's exactly what I did.
And you actually can do so if you if you understand their real record. I'm talking about off camera and off the microphone in regards to some of their exploits in regards to bombing villages and killing people.
You did a good job
You
of
may
not
have done
listening.
so unwittingly.
You do such a good job of not listening to make the exact point you want to make, which is a simplified reduction of anything into good versus evil, moral versus
So,
immoral,
Will, since we're
and guess
challenged-
which side you put yourself
So,
on
Will,
in
since
every
we're so
debate.
challenged,
it's not
so,
the
Will,
case.
since, hold on, Max. So, Will, since we're so challenged as it pertains to comprehending what the great, all-knowing, super educated Will King
Will,
is saying,
you
could you
offended when you-
educate? I'm asking the question. Could you tell me exactly what you said about Kevin Durant when you
Yeah, I will.
said that
See if you
it's about politics? You didn't say that?
Yeah.
Tell me what you said.
No, I will.
Tell me what you said.
And you know what? It's not an insult to say, please listen, okay? And I can't believe that
listening.
somehow, you're offended.
Answer the question, Will.
And I can't believe
Answer the question.
Stop talking and I will. I can't believe
Try answering the
somehow
question.
you're offended by me questioning your listening skills when you question the very morality of someone who disagrees with you. Yet you get to be offended. Here's what I said. Kevin Durant has the right. Everyone has the right. No one should have moral imperative to have to support anything they don't support. I've consistently held that position from administration to
That's not
administration.
what I'm asking.
I'm not done.
Stop it. You
Go
guys
ahead.
stop interrupting
I'm-
each other, please.
I'm not.
This show is so chaotic. You can see why Undisputed and some of these other shows are starting to catch up to First Take. This show is so chaotic and it's so emotional. And even the moderator never sounds like she's in proper control either of herself or of the debaters. And Will Kane is right. These people, they don't really listen to each other because none of them ever really makes concrete points. Everything is based off of emotion. It's more like a couple that argues all the time than an actual debate show.
Not done. From there, it flows. Kevin Durant is making a decision, which I, by the way, do not inherently disagree with, which I said in my exact statements when I opened up. Yes, I believe to some extent a line has been crossed for me, Max, but I don't put moral imperatives
No,
on
come
other
back
people.
to me.
I'm-
I want to answer. Come back to me. What
I
did
am.
you say
I
specifically
am.
about Kevin Durant and politics as opposed to it being personal? That's what I want to know what you
I don't
said.
even know what you're referencing now, but I'm working my way through it where I said...
Wait, Stephen A., I'd like to hear what I'd like to hear what Will was saying. He said a line has been crossed.
On a personal level, Max, that you can make decisions for yourself, which I honor and respect for Kevin Durant. It's not necessarily one I have to mimic, nor is it one that I have to require of other people. Yet you do, and you say that those that don't mirror your image, mirror your choices, are those that are immoral. And that...
Well, Max has been doing that as a tactic in regards to Donald Trump, because as I've stated, Donald Trump is a lightning rod for the liberals. He represents an extreme counterbalance to them. He's not even a moderate counterbalance. He's an extreme counterbalance because he does not censor himself. Okay? And that's really what this society is about. This society is about perception as opposed to reality. Now, Stephen A. Smith, he totally took Will Kane's statements and contorted them into what he liked them to be, which is a viewpoint of Kevin Durant not agreeing with the person of Donald Trump, which is an impossibility because he doesn't know Donald Trump. Right? How could you make those type of statements and you don't know him? He has not done anything to the extreme of rounding people up and throwing them in concentration camps. He has not done that. Now, at worst, what he's done is he stated that I'm going to take certain illegal immigrants and kick them out of the country, something that has been done for over 30 years. Right? Many other presidents have done that. Trump's issue is that, his decorum is not up to par with a lot of these other presidents, but his conduct is not disparate at all. So the real issue with the liberals, especially a lot of the so-called blacks who want the white man to love them and give him a hug, is that Donald Trump is not as, the way that he presents himself and expresses himself is not as palatable, right? It's not as easy to accept or ingest. And that's more of a reflection on how fragile the ego is of most of these liberal blacks.
And that's where we
Not
draw a line.
always, Will. Not
Just
always,
now.
but here is an
Just today.
example. You're discussing the principle. You're discussing this in terms of principle. And in principle, I agree with you. Everyone's entitled to do that. One shouldn't impose their beliefs on another, etc. But there are times in human history where there is a clear moral choice. Usually, to apply these principles are correct in terms of the nuance.
Yes, one of the times to imply or to apply that moral choice would have been when Max Schmeling could have decided that I'm not going to be a shill the Nazis. But, we all know that based on our perspective, that's how we tend to create our arguments. Point being is that Max Kellerman is a hypocrite. But that's already known. He's a liberal Caucasian Jew. I've spotlighted that almost from the inception of my channel.
Times where there are very clear moral choices. And if we pretend that there's ambiguity in this choice, that is incorrect.
Well, what Will Cain did wrong is he did not ask Max Kellerman to list why there are not any ambiguities in Kevin Durant's perception of Donald Trump. That's one of the many ways in which Will Cain has failed in this debate, which is very, very surprising. He normally is more astute and on point.
By the way, here is a moment in American history where there is a clear moral choice. Do you disagree with that?
Yes, I do disagree with that.
A moral choice for me, Max. A moral choice for me. Do you get it?
No, he doesn't get it because he's a fascist. Do you understand that? A fascist does not get anything that anybody else has to say because they believe that everybody's supposed to think exactly like them. They are the moral arbiter. That's the point. Max Kellerman is suffering from a very, very strong delusion, bordering on mental psychosis. He has a disease. So does Stephen A. Smith.
Do you get the difference? I'm not a dictator, Max.
No.
I'm a
single... No, I don't. If I see people waving swastikas and Confederate flags and using white supremacist slogans, I assume that's a moral choice for everyone.
No, it's not a moral choice for everyone. Because if it was, then certain people would not be members of that group. That's number one. Number two, the debate is not the so-called white nationalists and the people who comprise that group against quote-unquote good people. The issue was the white nationalists going against the counter-protesters that were filled with liberals, much like yourself, who were morally confused. By the way, I've stated this already. Max Kellerman states that he's an atheist. I know that he's really not. He's really just a moderate Jew, all right, who chooses to not live his life by the Torah. But he believes in a lot of the precepts and the concepts.
This is maybe Stephen A. This is what you're referring to. The last point I made is I said that I don't think Kevin Durant's analysis of Donald Trump and his reasoning is one that I look at and I go, yeah, he nailed it there. The truth of the matter is, I don't think God, it's so free from sports at some point, and this is why you mix it up, because I don't want to it's not just a political discussion. Donald Trump doesn't have some people he's for, some people he's against. He's not for anyone. He's for himself. That wasn't
my
we all
point
agree
against that wasn't my point against what you were saying. I was saying to you that you were comparing Kevin Durant's actions to guys from the past who may not have gone to the White House due to other administration.
What a simplistic reduction of what I said.
What I'm saying to you is that what you were saying to me was it's a political position that Kevin Durant was taking.
Which it is. It is a political position that he's taking. He doesn't like Trump's stand based on certain statements that Trump has made. It's the same reason why other people have not gone to the White House in the past. It's just people are trying to add or imply more gravity to what Kevin Durant has done because they're hoping that it will bolster their own opinion of Trump, that he's some type of new Hitler.
And I'm saying it has nothing to do with politics when they're thinking about this particular individual. It had nothing to do with politics. That's why I said I couldn't believe what you were saying, that you would deduce his words or you would deduce his actions into being something political when it's not political at all.
In your opinion. In your opinion, sir.
That's all I was trying
Everyone
to say.
says it's not political when they think that there's no potential other side than the one they hold.
Absolutely. Agreed. Finally, Will Cain, you're finally making some points. About time you be a man and show your fangs, man. These guys are idiots.
Even if I agree with the two of you, and we all said we might make the same personal choice, you know what the difference in the three of us is? I don't call everyone that disagrees with me stupid or immoral.
Actually, I don't either.
No.
Some people are idiots. Some people are stupid. And in regards to Max Kellerman, he calls people stupid plenty of times. I don't have a problem with it, as long as you're calling a spade a spade. But he does try to reduce the argument into good versus evil, with him always playing the good. That's a main tactic of a liberal fascist.
You've been on the radio
acknowledging in the past, which makes you phony right now. Just because I'm disagreeing with you right now, you're trying to act like it's always the case.
No, you're not disagreeing with him. The reason why he's upset is because you're trying to cloak your stance in morality. That's what he stated from the start.
Stephen A., you're right.
Stephen A., this is a very important
I take that
point.
back.
Will, this is a
We've
very
had that
important
conversation
point.
in the past. You're right, Stephen A. Today, you are not delving into that nuance.
All right.
Will, this is a very important point. It's not that there is no point of view on every issue. It's that there can be no disagreement on every issue. It's on this issue. People of goodwill are in lockstep.
There is no issue where people are in lockstep. So that's a lie. Plus, Will Kane is not making this fool define goodwill. All right, you have to define goodwill. You have to define evil. You have to define these things and have a proper understanding of the motivations behind them all.
On this issue, and there are some issues throughout human history about which this is true, and this is one of them. Hey, and my question to you would be, if this isn't what
Guys,
is.
this has to...
What is when are you going to empty your bank account, Max Kellerman? When are you going to empty your bank account and give it to the first homeless black man that you see because you're so guilt-ridden by the ills of society?
Has to be the last word. We have to take a commercial break. If there's something you really need to say, we can discuss it during the break and come back with it.
Okay.
But we've
I just want to say, if we're in lockstep, Max, we might look forward to make sure we're making progress. Not behind or not at the people walking with us or not walking.
Oh.
Well, you know, to be in lockstep implies that you're an army. Remember when the Nazis marched, they were in lockstep. But anyway, that was the discussion regarding Kevin Durant. I wanted to cover it because it was just very interesting how you see the various viewpoints of the moderate conservative Will Kane as opposed to the two liberals, that being Stephen A. Smith and Max Kellerman, and how they tried to project or present their arguments. This is not the last that we're going to see about this issue because, as I've stated already, the liberal blacks or pro-blacks, they are having an implosion due to a lot of the mass media propaganda regarding Donald Trump and a lot of the racial or racialized situations like Charlottesville. But anyway, peace.